Hello there, fellow peasants and little people. Boris Johnson has declared that face masks will soon no longer be compulsory. For now. As per usual, please like, subscribe and comment below. And why not buy a mug with my mug on it? Since the introduction of the controversial but compulsory face-nappy, many have wondered how long these face masks will be a feature of our everyday lives. Well, the Prime Minister has answered that question, with the 19th of July being the specified date for Freedom Day, when the divisive masks and the 2-metre rule will no longer be compulsory. After which, things the Prime Minister calls common sense and personal responsibility will be the watchwords by which we will supposedly live our lives. But this joyous news is coming from a Prime Minister that said we would be looking at a mere 3 weeks to flatten the curve, so you do wonder if it'll last. This is the PM who may be about to go back on his word and cave in to demands to further open the UK foreign aid chequebook. More on that in a minute. Yes, this is a Prime Minister who has repeatedly gone back on his word and presided over a front bench where it now looks like more than one of the most senior ministers that instigated social distancing may have broken those very rules that caused so much misery for millions, to questionable effect. So forgive me if I don't jump up and down with glee after hearing that face masks will no longer be compulsory, because everything seems to be dependent upon the statistics offered by statisticians that also break the rules they pushed to have enforced. You see, you are the little people and you have no rights. You must do as you are told. If you question the wisdom of the measures imposed upon you and the medical procedures that fall just short of being fully mandatory in status, you will be cancelled and your mediums of expression will be restricted. But if you are a government minister demanding restrictions, or a scientist with dodgy investments who is set to profit from his recommendations to government, or a professor who has been wrong on everything for the last 20 years, then you will be given full media exposure and a gateway into the hearts and minds of the nation. So no, I don't think this is the last we will see of the face mask. And I certainly don't think this will be the last lockdown. Now, I do fervently hope I'm wrong about all of this, and that I'm just being a highly cynical old man with trust issues when it comes to governments that have repeatedly lied to the public and as individuals have broken their own draconian laws. A government in the UK that allowed the great and good of the G7 to publicly glad hand and embrace maskless while their servants looked on socially distancing in masks. Exactly the same as Wimbledon. And there is also a supply chain across the world for face masks that one supposes has been extremely lucrative for some up to now, including shareholders. Many will be keen to keep this going for as long as possible. But just bear in mind that until the law was changed so as to save the planet, supermarkets used to give away billions of plastic bags every year for free. But now we're forced to pay through the nose for plastic face masks, and that must have chewed right into some family budgets. So don't tell me that these microplastic fibre face masks have not been overpriced, especially as you now pay the full 20% VAT on them. Did you realise that? A temporary zero VAT rating had been in place for 6 months between May and October last year, but that's gone. And that also all goes for some hand sanitisers, which never had any VAT relief. And I wonder how many warehouse shelves are still stacked with these products that will, in the end, have to be sold, given away, or disposed of somehow. But please just remember to do your bit and cut through the mask ear loops before disposing of them. It helps to stop animals getting entangled in them. Now on to Boris Johnson backtracking on plans to divert money from foreign aid and into the UK economy. Yes, it's reported that Boris is coming under intense pressure from his own Tory backbenchers to reverse the recent government decision to reduce the annual foreign aid budget from 0.7% of GNI down to 0.5% of GNI, which could save the UK 3 or 4 billion quid a year. Just when the nation needs every penny it can lay its hands on to dig itself out of this pandemic mess, it looks like the government is going to roll over to the demands of MPs, who've never had it so good when compared to the rest of us, and let them put on a show of international benevolence with our money. With much of that cash ending up being given to countries with space and nuclear programmes, as well as expertise in novel virus production, or diverted into the bank accounts of some very unsavoury people. MPs are very adept at voting to spend other people's money, so that they can be seen to be the ones handing out the largesse. They have therefore not been at all happy with this hard-nosed but necessary move to limit foreign aid, because it makes them look so Scrooge-like. No, they keep telling us how racist and bigoted it is not to splurge our money about, and have also tried to hijack a bill going through Parliament to force the taxpayer to borrow more money on the national credit card, then give that money away, then demand we pay the interest on it. Yes, that's right, the Treasury coffers are empty. We have to borrow that money and add it to the 2 trillion quid plus and fast-growing national debt, accrue the interest, and then get taxed to pay for the lot of it. And at the same time they're talking about increasing the age that people can qualify for free prescriptions in England from 60 up to the state pension age, as well as the soon-to-come extra taxes for elderly care. Anyway, the story is that Boris will very soon be offering MPs a binding vote on whether or not to restore the foreign aid budget to 0.7% of GNI. And one of the reasons given is that MPs will keep on adding amendments to every bill coming forward to try and force the issue. So the government might as well grasp the nettle, they say. Now, this will of course need a government motion and a binding vote in the House of Commons. And I would lay a bet that some MPs would rather like to see the UK give much more money away to the rest of the world during this period in global history. So I would expect some to back not just a restoration, but put forward an amendment to that to increase it to say 1% of GNI or maybe even more, with the argument being that our GNI is lower than normal because of the pandemic, so we should put more in now to make up the difference. The Green MP Caroline Lucas and Ed Davies Lib Dems are prime candidates for this sort of thing, and there will be many in the Labour Party who would back this, probably more for political Boris-bashing reasons than any humanitarian thoughts. And so as not to be seen as the nasty party, some wets on the Tory backbenches would also back it. Once again, I do hope I'm wrong. But it's always strange that the UK cannot afford to be the world's policeman and must decolonialise. But we can afford to be colonial-like when it comes to being the world's social services, can't we? So Boris could be opening a real can of worms here if he allows MPs a free binding vote on this, with the first problem being that it would be a display of abject weakness by him. Finally, a big thanks to my Patreon and PayPal supporters. And what's your opinion on the impending end of lockdown and the impending increase in the foreign aid budget? Please like and comment below.